Alrighty, let's get started. So, first of all, any questions about anything so far from week 1? Anything at all? Alright, so what did we do in week 1? We talked about output, input, variables, and I posted the lecture notes and the video in there for the whole week. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to do the same thing for this week. So it's going to be all one video and under Tuesday for selection. Okay, so what is selection? Selection is a way for your program to just do certain lines of code instead of all of them. Okay, so if you click on this link right here, selection link, you're going to see this little page here, and I have some examples, so I'll go through this. So the idea is basically, let's say you have this kind of a thing, right? So you have a variable age, the variable is equal to 25, and you have a bunch of messages after that, okay? So what's going to happen if I run this program? If I run it, it shows you all the lines, right? It shows you every little print message. So it shows you this one, shows you this one, this one, this one, okay? But that's not what I want, okay? So if the age is 25, I want to tell them the message, you're over 21 years old, right? And I'm not going to show any of the other messages. So how do we do this? We do it using selection. So the selection is when you use if, if, or else. Okay? And how does it go? It goes like, if my age is less than 18, I'm going to indent the code that I want to execute, if that's true, and then whatever's indented under the if is what's going to happen, right? So I can go in there and break this thing into 2 separate lines. Let me just go in there and do a quote, and equals, quote, quote. What is that? If you remember, that means you're basically preventing it from automatically inserting a new line for you. So that way both of these are going to show on the same line, right? This message shows, we don't do a new line, and then we show the rest of it on the same line. Both of these are going to show because they're both indented underneath the, age is less than 18. Okay? So first of all, this piece right here is called a condition. Okay, and what is a condition? Means to check if something is true or false. Okay, and true, false are actually their own data type in a lot of the languages. Okay, so that's the new data type that I'm going to introduce today is Boolean, right? Which is a data type for true and false. Okay, so you're going to ask yourself, well, how does the computer know to do this? Well, before I get to that, let's just see if it works, right? So I'm going to go in there and say, okay, let's do the over first. So I'm going to get that out of the way. I'm going to take this out for a second. We're going to deal with that in a second. Okay, so if you are over 21, there'll be an if age is greater than 21, and then I'm just going to indent this thing in it. Okay, and there's at the end we also have another one, which is if my age is between 21 and 18. So this one is going to be if the age is greater than or equal to, no, it's greater than or equal to 18. And, well, let's do the and later. And then inside this one, I'm going to have another one. If my age is less than or equal to 21, that's when I'm going to show this message. Okay? And this here is an example of a nested if. Nested if. An if inside of another if. Okay? So let's just test this. And by the way, this can come from the user, right? So it doesn't have to be just, oh, it's always going to be 25. Maybe I'm going to change this to int input, please enter an age. Okay? And I'm going to go in there, run this thing. Alright, so age is, nice if I could click on this thing. That's gonna mess me up. Give me 1 second. Let me unplug this real quick because the click doesn't work. There we go. Back in. Come on. Yeah, click's not gonna work, unfortunately. Okay. So I'm going to go in there, let's say I'm going to go and enter 15, right? I'm going to hit it, and it shows you that message. If I go in there and run my program one more time, right? Now I'm going to go give it 33, you're over 21 years old, and if I go and I run it one more time, right? And I give it 20, then it's going to tell me that I'm between 18 and 21. Okay, so this is how it works, right? This is, now let's have a look at how the computer figures these things out, right? So I already told you that this here is a condition, which is means you check if something's true or false. Okay, so how are conditions built? Okay, so conditions, right? Conditions are built using the relational, let's do it here. Relational operators. Okay, and the relational operators, I have them listed in here, so I'm just going to copy paste them. All right, these are the different relational operators. I'm going to put a multi-line comment so I can throw them in there. All right, so this is the equal, this is the greater than or equal, less than or equal, not equal, less than, greater than. Okay, so if you have one of these relational operators between two things, between two numbers, for example, or two variables, it will figure out how to do this, right? So how does it know to figure out if something's true or false? It's part of the processor. The processor has two pieces in it. One is the arithmetic logic unit, and that piece, the arithmetic logic unit, can do these kind of things like addition, subtraction, multiplication, all the arithmetic, plus checking to see if something's true or false. Okay? So using relational operators, we build conditions, which is how we check to see if something's true or false. Okay, and then what I'm going to do in here is I'm just going to show you that it can actually figure these out. So I'm going to show you, let's say print, I'm going to throw in a variable, 3 is less than 4, and then here I'm going to do in parentheses 3 is less than 4, and let's see if that works. Why didn't it work? I saved you. No, you're not printing even. Oh, no, never mind. That's the first thing I'm entering. So let me do this. I'm going to go in there. I'm going to take this off. Instead of an input, I'm just going to make it 12. That way I don't have to enter things all the time. Run it. Right? 3 is less than 4 is true. Right? So if I go in there, I'm going to do some other ones. Right? So I can show you all the different relational operators and that it can recognize true and false. Right? 3 is less than or equal to 4. Right? Run again. That's also true, right? It is less than. It might not be equal, but as long as it's less than, this is true. Okay, then another one. Paste this. Let's say 3 is greater than 4. Okay, that should be a false. I'm gonna, I'm gonna do the rest of them. So 3 is greater than or equal to 4. Greater than or equal to 4. Another one. Let's do 3 is equal to 4. This is to check to see if it's equal. Right? And last one is I'm going to do the not equal. So this one here is not equal, the exclamation before an equal sign. Not equal. Okay, I'm going to save this, run again. And you're going to see that, yeah, it recognizes it. It knows that this is a false, it knows that this is a false, and it knows that this is a true. Okay, any questions? So relational operators, conditions. So again, hey, my click works. So if I go in there, and again, this is the condition, and if I go in there, this here is my relational operator. Okay, and the ALU, the arithmetic logic unit, ALU, of the processor can evaluate conditions. Right? So we take advantage of that property of the processor when we write our programs. So that is an example that I have for you so far. Now let me do some other things. So any questions about any of this? Make sense? Okay. All right. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take this thing here, right? And I'm going to rewrite it, right? I'm going to rewrite the above nested if using the logical operator AND, right? In other languages, the AND is ampersand ampersand. In Python, it's just AND, right? How does it go? If my age is greater than or equal to 18 and my age is less than or equal to 21, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to show the same message. I'm going to copy this, paste it, right? And then hopefully if I go in there and let's say I'm going to change my age to 20, right? That should trigger both of them. So this should show, and this should also show. So it should show me these two lines twice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this off here. That way we don't see a bunch of crap all the time. I'm going to run it again. Right? And you can see that it shows you both of these lines, right? Because if this is true, then if this other one is true, you go in there and you show them this. Is another way to do this is using the AND. So it's if this is true and this other thing is true. Make sense? Okay, so how does the AND logical operator work? So you're going to have either a true here and you're going to have maybe a true here too, right? So is my age greater than or equal to 18? Yeah, 20 is greater than or equal to 18. And is my age less than or equal to 21? Yes, it is. So since both of these things are true, this whole thing evaluates to true. Okay? But there's other ways that this could end up being. So you could have a false here and a true here. And if that's the case, the whole thing is going to be false. And by the whole thing, I mean this whole thing right here is going to be false. Okay? There's also, you could have false in there. Okay? If that's the case, then this is also going to be false. Okay? And the last one that you could have is you could have a false in here, and you can also have a false in there, in which case the whole thing is going to be false. Okay? So the only time that an AND is true is when both of these things are true. What is the practical application as far as numbers are concerned? You're checking to see if something is in between two values, right? If it's between maybe 0 to 100, that will be an AND. Okay? So, questions? We're good? All right. The next one is, let's say I want to go in there, and I'm going to mess with this thing now. So I'm going to go in there, and I'm going to change my age to, in fact, why don't I grab this thing, because I don't need it there. I'm going to put it right here. That way I don't have to scroll all the way up. Okay, so what I'm going to do this time is, and again, this could be just the user is entering this information. It doesn't have to be just static number all the time. But for testing purposes, when I write the programs, a lot of times, you know, by the time you tested the program, you're going to have to run it 20 times. You don't want to, every time you run the program, to go in there and enter a number. So it's easier for me to just change it right here. So minus 20. Okay? So it's a minus 20 now, but minus 20 is an invalid age, right? Because you don't want to have a negative age. Okay? So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to give it a message. All right? So how am I going to do this message? How am I going to check to see if it's a negative? If age is what? Less than 0. Okay? Right? That would be a bad age, and I'm going to give them this one, right? This is an invalid age. So now if I run this thing, which messages is it going to show me? You don't have to all answer at once. Is the age less than 0? Is this message going to show?
Yes.
How about this message? Is this one going to show?
Yes.
Yes. So if I run the program, right, because negative is, yeah, it's less than 18. So yeah, I'll tell you it's an invalid age, but you also tell me you're under 18 years old. But I don't want to get that message. I don't want to see a message. This is an invalid, if I see the message invalid age, I don't want to see any of the messages about, how old you are and stuff. Okay? So what I'm going to do is, and I'm going to go in there, I'm going to take this one off. So I'm just going to leave it with the and, right? Because that works the same way as the nested if. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to change a couple of things. So this is my invalid age, right? And then after that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say elif. And then elif. All right, go in there. Elif. Elif. Okay, so what's the purpose of an elif? An elif only will get checked when the previous if or elif was false. Right? So an elif will not get checked, right, when the previous if or elif was true. Okay, let's see if that's true. If I run it, for a negative value, it's just an invalid age. So since this thing here was true, we're not going to go and check any of these other ones after it. Okay, that's the purpose of an if-elif chain. Okay, let's do another one. Does this make sense? Any questions? Okay, so let's do another one. So let's say we're going to do another bad age. So what's a really, what's a bad age? Let's say for a human being, what's the oldest human being we have on record?
122.
That's close. All right. Hi. Do you know who that is actually? No? All right, let's Google it. Oldest documented human being. All right. According to Google, it's this French lady who lived 122 years and a half. So you're off by 164 days. Okay? And you know what's interesting about her? Other than that she's French and a woman, right? I'll give you a clue. Hold on. That's not her. I'll go Google Jacques comment. And show you a picture of her to give you a clue. That's her with a cigarette. Oldest documented human being in history. Okay, and she smoked and she was 119. Okay? What else did she do? She ate a bunch of chocolate, drank a bunch of wine every day. Alright, so there you go. Now you have it. That's the key to longevity. So we're going to go and say, alright, the oldest human being, we're going to go with a 123, right? So I'm going to say, alright, if my age is greater than 123, I'm going to give you the same message here. Right? And if I run this thing for an age which is like 500, right? Run it again. It gives me, you're over 21 years old. Okay? So, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to make this also an elif, whoops, so that it stops at that first one. All right, run it again. There you go, invalid age. Okay? All right, but now you're going to see that what I did is I pretty much repeated this code 2 times. All right, same message 2 times for 2 different kinds of ages. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to turn this piece of code off. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to rewrite the top 2 if, elif, using the logical operator OR. Okay, in other programming languages, the OR is 2 vertical slashes. In Python, it's just OR. Okay? So how does it go? It goes like if age is greater than 123 or the age is less than 0, then I'm going to give you this message. Alright, so I just reduced my lines of code by a whole lot and simplified my code, made it more efficient. Run it, and there you go, same way. Okay? Now, there's a couple of, couple of ways that you can end up with, with these two different conditions inside of the or. Okay, similar to what we had with our, and, right? I'm just going to copy that whole thing here, so I don't have to do it again. Hopefully paste the right way. Paste right in there. Okay, so the things that could do is, you could have a true and a true, in which case it will be a true. You could have a false and a true, in which case it will be true. You can have a true and a false, in which case it will be a true. In fact, the only time it will be a false is when both of these are false. Okay? What is the numerical application of this? Well, you're checking to see if a number is outside of the range of acceptable values. Right? So the AND is to check to see if a number is between, let's say, 10 to 20. If I want to see if the number is between 10 to 20, it's an AND. If I want to see if the number is outside of my range, acceptable range from 10 to 20, I would be using an OR. Okay, and besides these numerical applications, you literally write your code as you would think about things. Like, okay, if I grab the door handle and press down and the door is unlocked, I can open the door. So you write your code the same way you would think about things. Okay? Any questions? Make sense? All right. So these are your truth tables for the OR, the AND. You have an if, an elif. And what else? So let's have a look at what else I want to tell you. Okay, so logical operators. All right, so there's a couple of different, just different examples here that I have of how, how different ways you could use ifs and elifs and stuff like that. So you can have an if just by itself, right? I already showed you can have an if inside of another if, which are the nested ifs. Okay, you can have an and, you can have an or. Okay, you can have a bunch of ifs after each other. They don't have to be if, elif, right? It could just be ifs. You can have an if, elif, and then you can have an else. Okay, so what is the else? Let me just show you an example. So let's say I'm going to go in there and I'm going to say if age is less than 0, I'm going to say print negative. Let's just go with some other number. Num. Num is equal to -1, right? So if my num is less than 0, I'm going to say negative. Okay? And then I'm going to say, okay, if my num is greater than 0, right? That will be print positive, right? And then I'm going to add another one, just an else, and I'm going to say, well, it's a 0. It is 0. Okay? So if it's less than 0, it's a negative. If it's greater than 0, it's a positive. What is an else? The else automatically happens when the previous if or elif was false. Does that make sense? Sure? Okay. So it's basically the final thing that happens when all the other things haven't happened, I guess, if you want to think of it that way. Okay? So that's an example of if, elif, else. So I'm going to turn that piece of code too. And I'm going to grab it and I'm going to put it on top of this other one here where I started. Like that. Okay? So let's go back and I'm just going to do this here where I have it. I'm going to copy this and put it right here again. That way we have it on two places. Okay. So you know about if, elif, else. You know about or. You know about and. You know about the nested ones, right? Similar to an and. What else? What else? So the next thing I want to tell you is possible things that you can do, right? So continuing with this, you can have an if, elif. You do not have to end with an else at the end. You could have an if and just an else after it, right? If this thing isn't true, this message is going to show, right? Automatically, whatever's inside the print is going to happen when the previous thing is false. Okay, some of the common mistakes. So let me show you some of these common mistakes. Okay, you have just an else. Let's say I'm going to go all the way to the top where this whole thing started. I'm going to say, oh, well, L if age is less than 0, print hi. All right, if I run this, it's not going to like it. Why? Because I don't have an if preceding my elif. Okay, so that's one of your common errors. Okay, another common error is, let's say you have an if, right? If age is less than 0, and then I'm going to say, all right, in it, I'm going to say L if, I don't know, if age is less than, L if age is less than negative 120 or something, right? I want to show this message. Okay, that's also a problem because since I'm inside of the if, I am supposed to start with an if again. So when you indent somewhere, when you start a new indentation, the first thing in there should be an if, not an elif. If I try to run this thing, it's not going to be happy again, right? Invalid syntax. Same thing with an else. You can't have an if, elif, and you can't have an else starting here. All right? If I run that, doesn't like it, invalid syntax. Okay? But if I have an if, there wouldn't be an issue. So I could start this thing with if here. So if my age is less than negative 125 or something, right? If I run this, the message might not show, but I'm not going to get I'm not going to get the high message, right? I'm not going to get a syntax error even though the high message shows. Make sense? All right. Some other issues. So you can't start with an else, elif. Okay, you can't have an else in there. Okay, so another issue is the else should not have a condition, right? The else, there's no condition in the else, okay? Hopefully it gives me a syntax error. No, it doesn't like that either, okay? Why? Because the else is supposed to not have a condition. Actually, I shouldn't have an else by itself, but the other error is you cannot have a condition for an else, okay? What else? So you can't start with an else, you can't start with an elif, the else because it does not have a condition. Another common error is you have an if, and then you're trying to check to see if age is equal to, I don't know, whatever, 0. Is that okay, you think? Why is that? 2 equals, okay? So the single equal is how you make the left thing, the age, equal to the 0. The double equal is how you check to see if it's equal. So Python, hopefully it's nice enough, and it is, to actually give you a syntax error. A lot of other languages like Java and C++, they'll just run with it, and the program's not going to work. Okay? So the more syntax errors you get before the program gets started, it's actually a good thing. Okay? It's a higher level language. You can think about things, right? So what else? What else do I want to tell you? Let's see if there's any other ones. Yeah, that's about it, right? So these are some of the common mistakes, and don't worry, I'm sure you're going to make some of them yourself. Okay, those are the concepts. Those are the fundamentals. And to me, in my opinion, this is one of the most important things that, you know, if you master the logic, if you can compose these ifs and end ifs, that's the heart of the programming. Okay, later on we're going to learn about repetition, how something can repeat a bunch of times. But even within that repetition, that's something that repeats a bunch of times, you're going to have ifs and elifs. So if you don't understand this, you're not going to go anywhere in programming. So, and how are you going to understand this? Put in the time. It's not going to, it might not click over right away. It might take a day or two, or a certain number of hours. But if you put your mind to it, and if you just keep thinking about these things, and with all the practice that I give you, you should be okay to learn these. So, next thing I want to do is, let's go to the week for this. And what we're going to do is, we're going to look at the different problems that I have for this week. Okay, so I'm just going to go through them real quick, and that'll be it for today. So first one is, I'm not even sure these have anything to do with selection, but let's see. So first one is, write a program to compute a person's height. This one doesn't even have to do with ifs and elifs. So basically the user enters two numbers, enters this number, and then enters the other number, and then you're supposed to show them their total height in inches. Any questions about that one? For sure? Okay, so I'm not going to give you any hints on that. Unless you ask for it. Anyone want any hints? Alright, you want a hint. So I aim to please. So P6. So first of all, for all your programs, what I want you to do is just go in there, copy the description. Alright, I'm going to go back to the thing. Alright, I'm going to go in there all the way at the bottom. I'm going to say, alright, P6 hint. Right, so what I would like to do is, for every, remember how every program on top of your program, you got to put your name, your program name, date that you did this thing, the Python version, and a description. So how you do the description, you go in there, copy it from the assignment, throw it in your program, right? That way, when you look at your program 3 months from now when the semester is over, you know exactly what you were supposed to do, right? It's not like a program that is doing I don't know what. It's exactly in your description what you were trying to do. Okay, so I know exactly what I want. I want this kind of thing going. Let's see what I'm going to do. So, all right, so first, what can I do? What kind of an example can I give you that does not solve this thing exactly? Pounds and ounces, let's do that. Okay, so let's say I'm going to go in there and write a program to compute a person's weight. All right, weight, yeah. Okay, user will enter two numbers, pounds, and ounces. Okay, and the value, all right, so this is, the output is going to be the values that were entered, the values that were input, and the total in ounces. Okay, so let's say, how's it going to go? I'm going to get rid of this example here. All right, so it goes like this. So I'm going to say, all right, pounds is equal to, let's go with integers, input, please enter pounds, and then I'm going to copy this for the next one. This is going to be the ounces, all right, and then what I have to do, I have to calculate weight in ounces, which is going to be equal to my pounds times, how many ounces are in a pound? 16? 12? No, isn't it 12? 16? There you go. All right, 16 plus ounces, right? So that's going to be the total, and I can show you print, let's say, this many pounds, and, pounds, this many pounds, and this many ounces, is weight in ounces. All right, so when I run this thing, hopefully it works. So I enter pounds. Again, it doesn't click. 1 second. 1. Enter ounces. I don't know, 10. So there you go. 16 plus 10 is 26. Okay, similar thing for your height problem. Okay, so that's that one. Next one is circumference and area of a circle. Similar to what I just showed you, right? The user is going to enter some number. You're supposed to calculate what is the circumference, right? And if you don't know the formula, I'll put it right here, right? But you could Google it also, right? So first of all, the formula is area is equal to pi r squared, pi times r squared. Except we can't do this kind of a business in Python. What can we do? I can do times 2, right? Or I can just do r times r. Either way. Okay? So let's go with the times 2. Okay? And then the circumference, circum is equal to my 2 times pi times r. Okay, keep in mind that if you decide to do this kind of a stuff like, oh, I'm going to put parentheses here, it will not know what you're trying to do. You could put parentheses, but make sure you put the multiplication sign in there. Okay? So that's your hint for that one. Okay, the user enters one number, and then you show them the circumference in the area using these formulas. Okay, so I'm going to save that one. Next one, P8, is it 8 now? Yeah, P8. Well, the numbers are a little off, right? Don't even worry about it. So let's go to the next one. So go from the main web page numbers. So this is 9. So we already calculated the height, right? From before, or I showed you a hint on how to calculate height. Well, in our case, we did weight, right? So this one is, I'm going to give you a hint on P9. So P9 hint, right? So now in this one, we're going to start using the selection, right? So how's it going to go? If the user is over 72 inches tall, you give them one message. If the user is between 5 feet and 6 feet, you give them another message. And if the total inches is less than 60, you give them another message. Okay, so different message based on different kind of a height, right? So let's say I'm going to go in there, I'm giving you an example. All right, so I already calculated my weight in ounces. So let's say I want to have one message when weight in ounces is over, I don't know, 100 or let's do this, over 500, right? And then another message when my weight in ounces is under 50, right? So I'm going to go in there, I'm going to say, okay, if my weight in ounces is less or over 500, I want to give a message like, oh, you are over 500 pounds, right? And then I can do another one, L if my weight in ounces is less than 50, right? I'm going to give another message, print, you are under 50 pounds, right? So different messages based on different values of this variable. Okay? Questions? All right, so that's your other hint. The next one, next assignment is letter grades, right? So the user enters some value, which is the percent, and then based on that value, you figure out what their grade is. Okay, so here's a little hint for 10. All right, so P10 hint. Okay, and maybe I should run my program, but I'll do it in a second. So let's say you have a grade is going to be a user input, int input. Please enter your grade and in percent. Right? They're not going to enter the percent sign. They're just going to enter a number. So I go in there and I say, okay, if my grade is greater than or equal to 90 and my grade is less than or equal to 100, I can tell them print you got an A or just an A. All right? Make sense? So that's the other one. The next one is, so we went through these 7, 8, 9, 10. The next one is you have voting. So I'll open up the voting one. Okay? So the voting one goes like this. You're going to vote. You can vote in this country if you're over 18, if you're a citizen, and if you're registered to vote. Right? So your program is going to ask them 3 questions. How old they are they a citizen, if they're registered to vote, and then you're going to tell them if they can or they cannot vote. Okay, so for most of these programs, what you have to do is you have to test them more than what you did already, because there's multiple ways that the program can go. You have to explore every possible way that it could go, right? So let's say first thing I will do is actually let me add some more sample runs. So the first one I would do is, I'm going to paste this in there. So let's say they're 20, yes, and then yes, right? I can tell them, congratulations, you can vote, right? And that's the first one. So that will be the success one. Then I have some other ones. Let's say they entered a 20, a yes, and a no. You'll tell them you cannot vote because you must register to vote. Okay, then I'm going to have to go and run my program for the other case, which is I have a no in there maybe, right? You cannot vote, you must register to vote, and this one is also going to give them, you must be a citizen. Citizen, right? So you give them exactly the reasons why they can't vote. You're not going to interrupt them. Just let them enter all three things and then give them the respective messages. Okay? And then last one, I'm going to copy this whole thing. All right, the last one is, let's say they're too young. You're going to tell them you are not old enough, right? You must be a citizen and you must be registered to vote, right? So you basically give them all these different messages. Okay? So this is your test runs. So how many times are we going to run this? 4 different times. Now let me give you a little more of a hint. All right. So this is P11. All right. So this is your P11 hint. Okay. So let's say, and this is user, user enters these. Right? We have things like their age, right, is equal to whatever. Let's say we're going to go with 12, right? Their citizen is equal to, and then again, all this stuff is input, right? Input, right? Okay. Then the next one is, so the citizen, let's say they put, I don't know, whatever, no, okay? And I'll go with all good. So this one's going to be 23. This is going to be yes. Right? And you should tell the user what to enter, right? So are you a citizen? And tell them something like yes or no so that they know what to enter. Okay? Quote. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that's right. Okay. And then what's the other one? Registered. Registered is equal to yes. Right, so I'm going with all good ones. So what I do an if my age is greater than or equal to 18 and my citizen is equal to yes and my registered is equal to yes. Then I'm going to tell them, oh, by the way, notice how right now it kind of messed up the indentation. It's supposed to go where, underneath it and underneath the if, but it's not doing it right. So that's your Python way. That's the way for Python to tell you, hey, there's something wrong with your code. So whenever you notice your indentation is off, it's not lined up the way it's supposed to be, there's something with the code that you messed up. So what did I mess up here? Single quote right here. All right. So now if I go at the end, I hit the enter, it lines it up as it should. So this one will be the print. Congratulations. Congratulations, you can vote. Okay? And then what is the other one? So this is the you can vote, and then you would have an else, and that's when you're going to tell them print, sorry, you cannot vote, and then you're going to tell them why, right? Because, and then you're going to go and do a couple of ifs, like say, all right, if my age is less than 18, you're going to tell them print, you are not old enough, okay? And you can do the other ones, all right? Do the other 2 ifs, okay? And if you can do this without looking at the hints or the video, more power to you. That's the way you should be able to do it, okay? So try not to go off, like don't look at how do I do this on Google, or don't look at my notes, because you're handicapping yourself. The purpose of this is to develop your thinking process of, how do you go from some word problem, which isn't that hard in the beginning, into a code, right? So that is the hard part a lot of times. How do I go with a real world problem and make code for that thing? Okay, so don't look for solutions unless you absolutely get stuck. Okay, so all right. So that's the 11, 12. All right, rock, paper, scissors. Okay, so you know the rock, paper, scissors game. If you don't, paper covers rock, rock breaks scissors, scissor cuts paper, and if they're both equal, tie. Right? We're going to make a game for it. So for simplicity's sake, you can have, you can play against yourself. You can be player 1 and player 2, right? Both of them are entering something. So what are you going to do? You're going to do, let me go and show you. So I'm going to go in there, and this is your P12 hint. P12 hint. Okay. So let's say you have player 1, right, is equal to rock. You have player 2, let's say, is equal to paper or something, right? And again, this is something that the user can enter, right? Input, all that good stuff, right? Input, okay. So, but for testing purposes, remember, I hate typing things into my programs. It's much easier for me to just change the numbers here for the testing of the program. When it's all tested out, when I have checked every single possible way that the program can go, that's when I'm going to go and introduce my input. All right, so how does it go? You basically have 3 ways. There are 3 ways for player 1 to win. And then you can also have 3 ways, whoops, damn. Okay, you can also have 3 ways for player 2 to win. And I guess you could say there's 3 ways to tie also. 3 ways to tie. Okay, so let's go with the 3 ways for player 1 to win. So you have, if my player 1 is rock, right? What does player 2 need to be? So if I'm the rock, what do you need to be for me to win? Okay, so scissors or S, right? So I can tell you print player 1 wins, rock breaks scissors. All right? Let's do another one. If my player 1 is equal to paper, right? What does my player 2 need to be for player 1 to win? Rock. Right? And then you give him another message. Player 1 wins. Right? And this time it's paper covers rock. Okay? So you need one more case, basically. You write the other one. Right? So write the other one way for player 1 to win. Okay? And I'll give you one more hint. Let's do player 2. So for player 2, you literally let's just grab this thing. All right? And then flip them around. So now it's going to be player 2 is this, and player 1 is this. All right? I grab my message, and I go in there and change this to player 2. Okay? Any questions? Okay, and then you're going to write the other three ways for them to tie. In fact, you can simplify the 3 ways to tie into something else, but if you write all 3, I won't hold it against you. Okay, so that's your 12 hint. The next one is 13. And this one here is something like this. So basically, let's say you have some kind of a teller who is having a hard time giving out change, right? So you're going to write a program to tell them how many, what amount of coins they're going to give out, so that they don't give you 66 pennies when they're supposed to give you, 2 quarters and a dime, a nickel, and a penny, right? So you're going to break it down into as few coins as possible. Okay? So it goes like this. Let's say the user enters cents 66. What you're going to do is you're going to figure out the quarters by dividing by cents by 25 and then using the int, right? So 66, what is 66 divided by 25 is 2.64, right? 2.64 is not a whole number of, I need a whole number for the quarters. So if I say int for that, It's going to get rid of the decimal pieces, decimal points, I mean the numbers after the decimal, and that's the 2. Okay, then the next thing you have to do is you have to subtract your cents or your quarters from the cents. It doesn't know what a quarters is. Quarters is just some variable we made up. So you have to tell it your old value of the cents, which was whatever they entered, is now equal to, the new value of the cents is equal to its old value minus the 2 quarters times 25, which is 16 cents left. And now you have to go and do this thing again for the next, for the dime. All right, the dimes divide by 10, for the nickels divide by 5, and then whatever else you're left with is your pennies. Okay? Where you could use ifs in here is to not show zeros, right? So let's say I go in there and I say 16. You could use an if so it doesn't show you, you have 0 quarters and 0, whatever else, right? So it does not show you the zeros. You could use ifs for that. But based on what I'm giving you here, you don't have to do that, so I won't overcomplicate it. Okay? So the hint for how to solve this is within the assignment itself. I won't put it in the video or the notes. And last one is the astrology program. All right? And last semester I had one student who told me that this program offends him because of spiritual reasons or whatever. I said, all right, go ahead, use fruits and vegetables instead. All right? So if it offends you, pick something else, right? But just go with these numbers. So how does it go? It's, you have different zodiac signs or whatever based on your date of birth. So let's say if you're born between March 21st and April 19th, you're going to be Aries, right? The user is going to give you 2 values. They're going to give you the value for the day that they're born in and the month in which they were born. And then you're going to just do this. So I have... Let me just copy it. So I'm going to go, again, don't look at the hint. If you can help yourself, don't look at the hint. Just look at the program description, the program requirements that I give you, and then based on that, you're going to write the code. So this is the code. All right, so I'm going for Aries is if we have March 21st through April 19th. So let's say I'm going to give it a day is equal to, 23, which is after the 21st. And I'm going to say the month is equal to 3, right? So it's March 23rd. They should be one of those. So then you go and you do this. All right, if my day is greater than or equal to 21, right? Starts at 21. How many days are in March? I guess you can look at the calendar if you want. All right? 31 days in March. Okay? So you can go in there and say, all right, and day is less than or equal to 31, and my month is equal to 3, right? That would be one way to do this. That will be this way, this one. You're between the 21st and the end of March, okay? So that's one way for you to be Aries, and the other one, so I'm just going to group that whole thing in with parentheses, and the other one is going to be or, right? And you help me with the other one. So the other one is, let's say April, so it has to be before April 19th. So my day has to be greater than or equal to what value? 1, okay? And my day has to be less than or equal to what value? 19. And my month has to be equal to 4, right? So if that's the case, I can just say, all right, Aries. Make sense? And you go and you write these for all the other 11 ones. Okay, it's a great practice with ifs and else and and ands and ors. Okay? Questions? Let me check if there's anything else. Yep, that's it. So these are all of the assignments for this week. All right? No reason not to do them. If you get stuck on any of them, if you have some bugs in your code that you can't figure out, you let me know. If you have not done all the assignments up to this point, don't start with these. Start with the first one you haven't done, and then you work your way. Okay? Starting at the last one, not going to happen. Okay? It's not going to work. So that is all I can tell you about selection. I am going to upload the lecture notes right now. These are some of the older lecture notes that I have. I also teach this class at MPC, so that's where this one's from their lecture that I gave them. This is from last year that I taught this class here. But you can just go off of the lecture that I'm going to post for today's date. Okay? So actually that was last year too. Okay, so I'm going to go in there and stop this. So, yep, you can get started and let me know if you have any questions. 1 second. Yeah, stop the recording.